guys in a couple of countries have a couple of beers and discuss the stadium somewhere in the world and their experiences there. I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.
And we're happy to be here with you tonight, or this afternoon, or this morning, whenever you're watching. Before we get started on tonight's topic, please make sure to subscribe to the Stadium Journey YouTube channel, like this video, and feel free to leave some comments. The official Stadium Journey review of today's venue can be found at stadiumjourney.com, or the link can be found in the comments below. So let's get rolling. Dave, what are you drinking tonight?
So I, like you, not a huge IPA guy. IPAs seem to be all the rage up here. Everybody's IPA everything.
Yes.
And I'm like, usually too bitter for me, too hoppy.
Yep. I don't want to make a funny face while I'm drinking my beer.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I was floating around looking for something OV-ish, and as in obstructed view-ish. And right next to Wasaga Beach is the city of Collingwood, town of Collingwood, actually. The vacation spot of one Alan Eagleson. So when Alan Eagleson was embezzling money from the...
You ever read that book? I'm sorry to digress, but have you ever read that book? The Bobby Orr book by Russ Conway?
Awesome.
We got to meet him. I got an autographed copy of that book.
One of the best ones. Game Misconduct. Yeah.
Yes.
But anyway,
anywho,
it says in that book quite often that Collingwood was kind of his spot, right? And a lot of former NHL guys, Collingwood is their spot. Anyway, so I got something from the Collingwood Brewery. It is a Tiki Time IPA. Simple can. You can't even like this. The text is like way down there. It's actually quite good. A little bit more citrusy than what I would say is a normal IPA. Not nearly as bitter as a normal IPA. So I'm happy so far. What do you got?
All right. So one of the funny things about our growing Obstructed Views empire is now I'm being solicited beers for the show. I mean, not from the breweries. That would be wicked awesome.
There you go. But
my wife went up to a craft show with her brother up in the sticks of New Hampshire, as they are wont to do very often on the weekends. And they actually went to a craft fair that had a beer tasting at it. And she tasted the beer, she liked it, and she grabbed it for the show tonight. And so this brewery is Hobbs Brewing Company in Ossipee, New Hampshire. Don't ask me where Ossipee, New Hampshire is. It's up in the mountain somewhere. And my beer is a Hold My Juice Box. And Dave, it's also an IPA. I think that's a pineapple or a fruit of some sort there with a
Or is it a hop? I think it's a hop.
Oh, it's a hop. Duh, that makes sense. And like your beer, it's a very fruity beer, very smooth. So like I don't like IPAs either because my face is funny enough. I don't need to make a funny face when I'm drinking my beer. So this one is very smooth for an IPA, so it passes the Paul test. So if we were visiting today's destination, we might be drinking 75 Tulips IPA from Fort Orange Brewery in Albany, New York, because today we're talking about MVP Arena, home of the Albany Firewolves of the National Lacrosse League. Before we dive in, let's take a look at the stadium vitals. Okay, disclaimer before we get started. I am a field lacrosse guy. I went to school at Johns Hopkins, learned the sport on the outdoor grassy fields of Baltimore. And, I prefer the outdoor game. So I know I'm going to try not to, and Dave reminded me this before we started recording. I'm going to try to remember that the Firewolves play in the NLL, the National Lacrosse League. You are going to hear me. I know it. I don't want to, but I know you're going to hear me refer to it as either the MLL, the defunct Major Lacrosse League, or now the Premier Lacrosse League. So you may hear me say MLL or PLL. I apologize in advance if I do that. But that being said, even though I am a field lacrosse guy, box lax is an awesome sporting experience.
Well, lacrosse, they say, indoor, outdoor, the fastest game on 2 feet. I always looked at, I mean, to me, there are just two totally different games, totally different atmospheres. I can't say I've done college lacrosse. I know you've done plenty of college lacrosse, especially lately. I have done some major league lacrosse, and it's almost like comparing the NBA to Major League Baseball. It was, much more production happening in the National Lacrosse League than in the outdoor game. And that's kind of part and parcel to the indoor outdoorness of it. I always looked at it as lacrosse is like the perfect marriage between hockey and basketball. Like it's got that possession aspect and that shot clock aspect that basketball has, but it's got the roughness of hockey. It's got the stick net goalie of hockey. It's played in hockey dimensions.
Yep.
So to me, it was like this perfect marriage. And I felt that, and I remember you said this because we went to this game together. That was awesome.
That's not a feat because Albany is not close to either of us.
Not really, but
almost in the middle, almost equidistant between our two homes, but not quite.
A little
farther
closer,
for you. A little farther for you, yeah.
But you had said this when we were there, is that in box lacrosse, they play music during the game, right? Unlike hockey, kind of like basketball. But in basketball, they seem to play, the same old,
It's just
defense,
beats. Yeah.
defense.
Yeah.
Some, like studio music almost, you
Right.
press the button and it's or whatever.
Yeah, it's generic stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas like there's a playlist, it seems like when you're watching some National Lacrosse League action, like, and they go through the whole list. So if you're like a classic rock person,
Yep.
you're gonna totally dig it.
And I was surprised because I was expecting like a lot of hip hop and stuff, and it was classic rock. I remember they played Journey, they played some Queen, a lot of different things. So it wasn't. After a while, I kind of got numb to the music there. It wasn't as intrusive as I was afraid it was going to be.
Yeah. The announcers are very different, I find, in indoor lacrosse, in this league anyway. Much more interactive than in basketball, than in hockey or anything like that. It almost seems like at times the announcer's a cheerleader. At times they're like talking to the crowd, like in a very sort of low key sort of way. Like, hey, this is going on or whatever. Did you see that shot? Or, and then there's, of course, like the big chants that they will lead. I'm trying to remember. Nothing specific jumped out at me in Albany, but I know in some places, like in Toronto with the Rock, whenever they would actually it wasn't Toronto. This was a Buffalo one. When they would shoot and the goalie would make a save, the announcer would yell out, "What's he got?" And then all the fans would yell out, "Nothing!" after, the goalie made a big save. In Toronto, it's like they always yell out, "Rosie," whenever the goalie makes a save because he's Nick Rose. So it's a fun environment. When we went, I'm sure you noticed this, there were a ton of kids, like all over the place.
Yes.
It seemed much more kind of kid friendly. Well, not that hockey and basketball are not kid friendly. I would say that they're probably more kid friendly on the price side, where you can afford to bring your kids and other people's kids, and you make a big outing of it, or you bring your teams or whatever. And it's just a ton of fun.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about. I agree with you, by the way. Yeah, I was really worried. I had been to a few box lacrosse games in the NLL because the Albany Firewolves are the former Connecticut Black Wolves. So a few years ago, they were sold by the Pequot tribe and moved to Albany. And it's kind of cool that they kept the Wolves as part of the identity and blended that with Albany's previous team, right? That's where the Fire comes from.
Well, the Fire, Albany is such a weird kind of market, right? Like they lost out on hockey. So there were a ton of AHL teams that were there and they all disappeared. Probably, well, okay, two. But the River Rats were a big successful team, had been there quite a while. Then when they left, I think there were a few years, and then all the Devils put a team in there.
Well, what I can tell you I can tell you the whole chronology of this. And to talk about hockey, two factors were at work. One was the Devils destroy every minor league hockey market that they ever touch. They've done it in Trenton, they've done it in Lowell, they did it in Albany. And the other factor that killed hockey in Albany, and guys, please, if you're listening to this show, do yourself a favor and look up the Albany Choppers. Okay, the Albany Choppers were the first try by the IHL, the old International Hockey League, to step outside of their traditional Midwestern market. They put a team in Albany when the old Knickerbocker Arena was first built, and it was an abject failure. The team only lasted 55 games, was pretty bad, and went out of business and went bankrupt. They didn't even make it a full season. So what had happened, this was in the time where the AHL knew what the IHL's plan was. Their IHL wanted to become the new WHA, and they wanted to compete with the NHL. So I don't want to make this story too long because we have a limited amount of time. So the IHL was looking to expand, and the AHL says, "Oh, you're going to put a team in Albany?" They already had a team in Glens Falls, the Adirondack Red Wings, very successful team, been there for a long time. So they also put a team in Troy. We have talked about the Houston Fieldhouse. So they put the Capital District Islanders in Troy. So now, within a 50-mile little circle, you had 3 minor league hockey teams. Recipe for disaster. The Choppers were the worst run of the 3. They went out of business. The Islanders moved into Albany. They moved from Troy to Albany, became a Devils affiliate. They became the River Rats, lasted for quite a while, were very successful, won a Calder Cup. Eventually, the Devils left. Carolina Hurricanes moved in, took over the River Rats until they moved them down to Charlotte. The Devils then moved back with the Albany Devils. They moved them over from, after they killed Lowell, they moved them over to Albany and then killed Albany. So that's why hockey doesn't work in Albany.
But you know what has worked in Albany?
Niche sports.
Arena football.
Yes.
Arena football. So the Fire comes from the original Albany Firebirds. They were quite a strong arena football team. And then the Arena Football League got big. Albany was then viewed as too small a market. They moved the Firebirds to Indianapolis. Blah, 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 blah. You know, the Arena Football League went on. In the very end of the Arena Football League's tenure, a team came back. So the Albany Empire was around for the last 2 years of the original Arena Football League.
And we're the most successful of the franchises in that league.
They were very successful. They had some really strong crowds. So holding that wolf part does a couple things. It goes back to the New England Black Wolves, yep, where they came from, which they were also the original Philadelphia Wings.
Right.
So they kept that part, but then there was a National Lacrosse League team in Albany from 2000 to 2003 known as the Albany Attack. And their mascot on their logo was a wolf.
Hey, so look at that.
There's just lots of weird little connections to come up with this team. So, yeah. But like you said, the arena originally opened in 1990 as the Knickerbocker Arena, was the Pepsi Arena, was the Times Union Center, and now is MVP Arena.
Do you know how much the arena cost to build?
More than I have.
$69 million.
Wow. Okay.
Nice. That's nice, isn't it?
They went through a nice renovation, though,
yes,
in about 2018. Yep. So South Pearl Street is the front end of the arena, and it gives off some kind of XL Center vibes because it's a little bit inconspicuous. It's not this, if you're on Pearl Street, it's not this gargantuan
thing, right?
Yeah. And And the front is for a minor league arena is very attractive. Huge video screens, these nice looking slats. Really nice.
Yep. That is, had you ever been to MVP Arena before, Dave?
I went when it was Times Union. It was
Okay.
I went to the Albany Empire. So
Okay.
the only real difference was it said Times Union that time, and it says MVP this time.
All right. I have been there many times for minor league hockey games. I saw the River Rats and I've seen the Devils there. That whole front section, it used to be wide open. That was a new enclosure as part of that remodeling. It used to resemble, somebody once in a message room that I was in once described it like as an outward bound course, I think is how they described it. So
Wow.
it had, you know, those escalators and stairs that you all see inside that big atrium, which is lovely. It's got a waterfall and it's got plants and posters. It's really attractive. That used to be all outdoors. So the ticket booth was outdoors. There's a room down there that's now like a restaurant. That was the pro shop. It was all outdoors and cold and ugly and nasty. And you'd stand there and freeze your butt off while you were waiting to get in. That's all inside, been closed off, very attractive. Now it has, what was it there? The Wrestling Hall, Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame?
Pro Wrestling, the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, which I was like, man, I wish I would have known this earlier and found a way to get in there. But
that was one of those things. As I was going
time.
up the escalator, I was like, there was a plaque of Bruno Sammartino sitting there. I'm like, wait a minute, what's that? And I'm looking.
Yeah.
There's the International Wrestling Hall of Fame sitting right there.
Interesting. They have some like street level restaurants kind of built right in.
Yeah, those have always been there.
So that's fairly unique. You don't see that a lot now. I think back to PNC Park. There's some of those kind of street level restaurants, but it's not something you see a lot of places where there's a place there that you can go from the outside. I don't even think you can get there from the inside at all.
No, you cannot.
So yeah, that's really kind of neat. That atrium though is quite interesting. Now when you get upstairs, because it's one of these ones where you're the ground level and then you got to go up to the concourse level. So
right,
its design is like I always harken back to the Palace of Auburn Hills. It's kind of like a design like that where you have single concourse with split seating. So you have stairs from the single concourse that go up to the 200 level, and then you go out the door and you're at essentially the top of the 100 level.
That concourse, well, it's a decently spacious concourse. If that was a full 16,000 person event, that would be a difficult place to get around.
Yeah, it would be kind of crowded. It is crowded with ads. Holy moly. It has a minor league feel to it when you walk in, because it feels like you're just being bombarded with ads and posters and that kind of stuff. And as a, like a treasure hunter who likes to go around the concourse and find interesting things, it's a real challenge to find some interesting things.
There's a nice Sienna display in the back side of the arena.
There is. It's actually the Capital District Basketball Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay.
So of course, this is also the home for Sienna basketball. The other thing that I found kind of interesting in there is they have in the corners, they have these nice portraits of interesting or iconic, I guess, maybe like Albany spots. So there's a portrait of the Albany skyline, of the Capitol building, like those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's cool. And I know one thing that you did not like about the design also occurs in the four corners of the building. And and if you've ever been to the old Spectrum, you'll know what I'm talking about. The bathrooms.
Yeah, lower level bathrooms. So like the concourse is one level, and there's essentially washrooms in the four corners, and you have to descend a set of stairs to go down to the washroom. So it's really kind of odd. If you are an ambulatory challenged person, I would assume that this is not going to be your favorite place.
No,
there's a lot of stairs in that spot.
Yeah,
in that place.
There are. Once you get inside the playing area, the seating bowl, it's pretty comfortable. It's got new seats. They block off the upper deck for lacrosse, so it's just lower level seating, and good views of the action from everywhere. And they do the standard PLL stuff. You've got the giant inflatable that the
NNL.
players run out. I did it. Oh, I almost made it.
Almost.
Oh. They have the big inflatable at one end for the team intros, and they've got the nice video board. So it's there's a lot of sensory stuff to keep you occupied. They do all the crowd shots and stuff for the kids, and the mascots roaming around, and cheerleaders and t-shirt cannons and all that good stuff going on.
Yep. Unfortunate. The crowd was not, the game we were at anyway, the crowd was not strong.
No.
I think the announced official crowd was 3,000 and something.
Yeah,
and
like 3,500.
I'm not sure it felt like that. Lots of kids. I would say it was loud, louder than expected. I mean, I did spend some time up in the press box area, which is just essentially in the 200 level. And I was like, where's all this noise coming from? Because it sounded much louder than the crowd that was there. I don't feel it was piped in, because they were piping in other stuff.
They do a lot to get the kids hyped, that's for sure.
I suppose it's possible, but
yeah, because what was the first thing, like when we went in, you came down and joined myself, and a friend of ours was there as well, so we sat together, and one of the first things out of my mouth was they had much bigger crowds in Connecticut.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. This year the National Lacrosse League is kind of a funny one, because some of the big teams are just ascending. They're having like their best crowds ever. Buffalo is coming close to selling out. The Rock, since moving to Hamilton, are getting their best crowds ever. And then some of the bottom ones are just really, really struggling. Panther City is struggling. Albany struggling. New York is struggling. And I really hope that they could like get a hold of the crowd. They seem to be doing everything they can. There's a block party. We didn't even talk about that. There was a block party before the game. They had a band out there.
The band was pretty good, I gotta say. There wasn't a lot of people at this block party, but the band was entertaining.
And I know that the Firewolves they've had a rough year on the floor. Not a ton of success. Not a ton of success. But isn't that, I always say this, the testament of your fandom is not what you do when the team wins. It's what you do when the team loses.
It's tough, though, when a new team struggles, because you don't have that built-in fan base to rely on and lean on just yet. And Albany doesn't have that yet. So,
yeah. But, I mean, they get better media attention than most markets, right? Like, there's a regular article in the paper on the Firewolves, because what else you get? Like, what else are you going to write about? The arena football is still there. College basketball is done, so you're not going to write about, Albany or Siena. And a lot of places don't get that article, that weekly article at all for right. Lacrosse.
Absolutely true. And it's funny in this like you said, I guess we'll finish off talking about the market of Albany. It's a strange market. They haven't really been able to have anybody that sticks. When they built this arena in 1990, they built it. There were actually rumors, and I think maybe they overestimated the market, that rumors that either the Winnipeg Jets or the Quebec Nordiques were going to move to Albany. So I don't know if there were any even inkling of discussions about that, or is it just one of those negotiating ploys? And it opened up the first event ever held. Actually, the construction was controversial. The guy who put the whole deal together was arrested for fraud because he took a bribe from the developer. So, New York State politics, right? The first event there was a Frank Sinatra concert. The first sporting event there was the Albany Patroons of the CBA. And if you look at all the tenants that have played in this arena, it's a long list from a lot of different minor league leagues. And please look up the Albany Choppers. You will enjoy reading the articles about the Choppers.
But yeah, get out and see some National Lacrosse League lacrosse if you can. If it's near you, it's totally worth it. The playoffs this year are going to be amazing. Go see Albany. If you're comparing this to the NBA or the NHL, like you could go to multiple games for the same price,
Right.
as an NHL or NBA ticket.
Parking is easy. There's garages attached on both ends of the arena. There's plenty to do in the area. There's some really good brew pubs. The New York State Capitol is 2 blocks away, so there's lots of things to do in the area. And of course, Dinosaur Barbecue isn't far away in Troy, right?
That's true.
So that's our look at MVP Arena, home of the Albany Firewolves. Thanks for joining us. We hope to see you on the road again real soon. Cheers.
Cheers.